All right, everybody, welcome to the video for the homework assignment for lesson number 2. So in lesson number 2, we learned about the complex numbers and we learned how to evaluate them. I'm hoping that in class you had your calculator and you were able to put it in A plus BI mode so that you can type some of this even in your calculator. I'll show you how to do that with a couple of these examples. The main thing about the calculator is don't get too attached to it because you have to be able to do this algebraically too. So looking at number 1, it says determine the value of n, and there's 3 pieces here that are I to a power. So to determine I to a power, so each one of these has a value. So if I go into my graphing calculator here for a second, so to be able to type these in, if I want to figure out what I to the 13th power is, I'm going to hit math. I'm going to go over to number because it's a number. And I'm going to go down to option 3 for I part. I then can type in I to any power here, so I can figure out, well, what's I to the 13th power? I can do that again and do I to the 18th power. And I can do that one more time and do I to the 31st power. Now, by taking these I to big exponents and reducing them down to ones, i's, or negative i's, I can evaluate or simplify this a little bit easier. So going back to my problem, now that I know what everything is valued to, I can say, well, I to the 13th power is just the same as I. I to the 18th power is the same as negative 1. And I to the 31st power is the same as negative I. I'm just going to put the negatives in parentheses so I can keep it looking the same. Plus n equals 0. Then just treat the i's like a variable. Combine your like terms. I and negative I, well, that's going to become 0. So I have negative 1 plus n equals 0. I think we can all solve that, and we get n equals 1. For number 2, we have to express each one of these in A plus BI form. A plus BI form is something that's going to come up here a lot in this chapter. So when I'm adding expressions, I'm just going to add up my like terms. 1 plus 1 is 2. I plus negative I is 0i, so I'll put plus 0i. That's my answer. I can even type that one in my calculator. I'm hoping you didn't have to. For the second one, I'm multiplying these two things together. So if I multiply these out, I'm going to make my boxes. That's not big enough. So I have 1 in I, 1 in negative I. So I have 1 I, negative I, and negative I squared. So if I combined up everything, these i's that are across from each other are going to cancel. So I have 1 minus I squared. But I squared, remember, is the value of negative 1. That's something that we should remember. It's a big concept here, right? That's something we need to remember. So if I evaluate this, I just get 1 plus 1, which is 2, plus 0i. You can even type that one in the calculator. Let me show you. So because you've changed your calculator to A plus BI mode, right? If you go into mode, if you look down here after like the 4th or 5th one down here, it says real A plus BI and some crazy looking thing. See how A plus BI is highlighted for me? If it's not highlighted for you, highlight it. Let's go down and hit enter. And now you can type in all of these expressions. So I can type in parentheses 1 plus I times 1 minus I and just hit enter. It tells you to. The only thing that the calculator is not going to do for you is it's not going to put it in A plus BI form. So you're going to have to do that yourself. Okay. Now we can even do like the crazier looking ones like the next one. So let's type this next one in the calculator and then we'll do it algebraically. So the next one says 1 minus I. And we're multiplying that by 2 minus 3i. And then we're adding that to 3i times 1 minus I. So I should get 2 minus 2I for this next answer. Let's see how we do it algebraically though, right? Because I could ask you to do this algebraically. So to do this algebraically, we're going to start by doing some multiplication, some box work here, right? We'll have to power like 9. So I'm going to get 2 minus 2I minus 3I and 3I squared. So when I write this out, I'm going to get 2 minus 5I plus 3I squared plus 3I if I distribute minus 3I squared. Nice for us, the 3I squareds cancel. Combined up your like terms, 2 minus 5I and positive 3I becomes negative 2I. There's your A plus BI form. The next one I'm just going to do algebraically. You can totally type that one in your calculator too. If you do, you should get an answer of negative 10 in the calculator, and you just have to make that in A plus BI form. But algebra is more important. We are in a class called Algebra 2, not Calculator 2. So we want to be able to do this algebraically, right? So just do some quick multiplication. So we have 9 plus 6I plus I squared minus 18 minus 6I. So what I'm hoping that you notice here is your 6i's cancel. So we're left with negative 9, positive 9 and negative 18 makes negative 9, plus I squared. But remember the big concept here, I squared is really negative 1. Negative 9 plus negative 1 is negative 10. And then to put it in A plus BI form, we put plus 0I. Number 3 is combining what we did in lesson 1 and what we did in lesson 2, and we're able to use the quadratic formula here. Now do something where we might not have a number underneath the square root symbol that's positive. I know it's not factorable because there's nothing that multiplies to make 13 that adds to negative 4. So we're going to jump right into the quadratic formula here. Two times 1 is just 2. And the first thing we want to do anytime we have a quadratic formula problem is evaluate the discriminant. Figure out what's underneath that square root symbol. That's going to help me tremendously. So if I type all that in my calculator, I get negative 36. So if I type in that in my calculator correctly, I should get negative 36. Now, 36 is a perfect square. So negative 36 is kind of like a perfect square just with I in it. So when I rewrite this, I'm going to get 4 over 2 plus or minus 6I over 2. I'm getting 6I because of the square root of 36 is 6. Since it's negative, it's 6I. And then I can break down each of those. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6I divided by 2 is 3I. This you can't use your calculator for. You have to be able to just type that in your brain there and figure out what comes up. That's the video for lesson number 2's homework assignment. Hopefully that helped you get through it or check your answers. Whatever you're doing, using this for is fine. Hopefully I see you soon.